Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel where we cut through the noise, bypass the mainstream media filters, and get straight to the raw, unfiltered truth that the Washington swamp doesn't want you to hear. Today, we are diving into a spectacle that would be hilarious if it weren't so absolutely terrifying for the future of our republic and the sanctity of your bank account. We are talking about the absolute clown show that is the Department of Education and the courageous, lone wolf stand taken by Representative Lisa McClain against a bureaucratic machine that has completely forgotten who it works for. You know, there is a fundamental principle in this country, or at least there used to be, that the government works for us, the people, but somewhere along the line, the script got flipped, and now we have these unelected, unaccountable career bureaucrats acting like kings and queens, dispensing your tax dollars as they see fit without a shred of oversight. What we witnessed recently in the halls of Congress wasn't just a hearing. It was an indictment of the entire modern administrative state. Representative Lisa McClain didn't just walk into that room to ask polite questions. She walked in there to tear down the veil of secrecy that the Biden administration has draped over their student loan forgiveness schemes. And let's call it what it really is, folks. It is a scheme. It is a massive, unconstitutional wealth transfer from the working class plumber, the truck driver, the waitress who paid off her debts or never went to college, directly into the pockets of the credentialed elite who signed on the dotted line for degrees they couldn't afford. But the issue here, the one McClain lays it in on, isn't just the policy itself, which is bad enough, but the absolute arrogance of the Department of Education in refusing to tell us how much it is actually costing. Imagine for a second that you run a small business, or even just manage your household budget, and the IRS comes knocking, demanding to see your receipts, and you just look at them and say, "I'll get back to you on that," or "We don't really have the numbers right now," or "It's complicated." You would be in handcuffs before you could finish the sentence. Yet, here we have the Secretary of Education, a man sitting atop a budget that would make some small countries blush, looking a member of the United States Congress in the eye and essentially shrugging his shoulders when asked for basic math. This is the swamp in action, my friends. They believe that they are above the law, above scrutiny, and certainly above answering to the representatives of the people. Lisa McClain wasn't having any of it, and watching her dismantle the excuses, layer by layer, was like watching a master surgeon cut out a tumor, except this tumor is attached to the very heart of our federal government. The context here is vital because you have to understand that this administration has been trying to bypass the Supreme Court and bypass Congress to push through this student loan bailout by any means necessary. They know it's unpopular with the silent majority. They know it's fiscally irresponsible. They know it drives inflation through the roof. But they don't care because it buys votes. It shores up their base. But when you try to pull off a heist of this magnitude, you have to hide the evidence. And that is exactly what McClain was digging for. She wanted the timeline. She wanted the data. She wanted to know when the American people would be given the bill. And the response she got was the classic DC two-step, a dance of obfuscation, delay, and feigned ignorance that is designed to run out the clock until the cameras turn off. But McClain is cut from a different cloth. She isn't part of the go-along-to-get-along club that has infested the Republican Party for decades. She understands that her mandate comes from the voters, not the lobbyists. When she pressed for a specific date, a specific time when the department would release the data on the return to repayment and the costs of these forgiveness waivers, she wasn't just asking for a calendar entry. She was demanding accountability. She was asserting the constitutional authority of the legislative branch over the executive branch. It is a battle as old as the nation itself, but rarely do we see it fought with such tenacity. The frustration in her voice was the frustration of every American taxpayer who looks at their pay stub and wonders why the government takes so much and delivers so little, other than headaches and regulations. Let's talk about the specific tactic used by the Secretary here because it is a textbook example of how the deep state operates. When McClain asked for transparency, the response was a word salad of bureaucratic jargon. They talk about processes. They talk about complexities. They talk about challenges. These are code words for "we are hiding something." If the numbers were good, if the program was a resounding success that was saving the economy, they would have those charts printed out in full color and pasted on every billboard from here to San Francisco. The fact that they are hiding the data, dragging their feet, and refusing to commit to a simple deadline tells you everything you need to know. They know the numbers are a disaster. They know that if the American people saw the true cost of this bailout, there would be a revolution at the ballot box. McClain's line of questioning exposed the fundamental rot in the system. She pointed out that with authority comes responsibility. You cannot demand the power to unilaterally wipe away billions of dollars in debt without also accepting the responsibility to report on it. It is a basic concept of governance, yet it seems to be a foreign language to the current leadership at the Department of Education. They want the power of a king but the accountability of a ghost. They want to wave a magic wand, spend your money, and then disappear into the fog when the bill comes due. McClain stood there as the only thing standing between us and total administrative tyranny in that moment. She reminded them that the Department of Education was created by Congress, is funded by Congress, and is answerable to Congress. We have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. Why is the Department of Education so terrified of transparency? It's because their entire existence is predicated on the idea that Washington knows better than you do. They believe that they can centrally plan the education system of a nation of 330 million people from a sterile office building in DC. And when reality clashes with their utopian visions, they simply suppress the reality. The student loan crisis itself is a creation of the government. By guaranteeing loans and subsidizing tuition, they gave universities a blank check to raise prices year after year, outpacing inflation, outpacing wages, outpacing reality. And now, instead of fixing the root cause, instead of holding the universities accountable for their bloated endowments and administrative bloat, they want to bail them out with your money. Lisa McClain sees right through this. She understands that you cannot solve a problem caused by government intervention with more government intervention. And she certainly understands that you cannot trust an agency that refuses to show its work. Throughout the hearing, you could see the discomfort on the secretary's face. He is used to softball interviews with friendly media outlets who will nod along and praise his compassion. He is not used to a fierce, articulate conservative woman demanding hard numbers. It disrupted his entire worldview. He looked like a deer in the headlights, caught between the lies he has been told to spin and the cold, hard truth that McClain was forcing him to confront. This is why these hearings matter. It's easy to tune out C-SPAN. It's easy to say it's just politicians talking. But what happens in these rooms determines whether we remain a free people or whether we become subjects of a permanent bureaucracy. When McClain fights for a deadline, she is fighting for your right to know how your country is being run. She is fighting against the shadow government that operates in the dark, making deals and moving money without any public debate. The arrogance is truly breathtaking. They genuinely believe that the data belongs to them, not to us. They believe that they are the guardians of the truth, and we are just the plebs who should be grateful for whatever scraps of information they deign to release. Think about the precedent this sets. If the Department of Education can get away with stonewalling Congress on billions of dollars in spending, what's to stop the EPA from doing it? What's to stop the DOJ? What's to stop the IRS? It is a slippery slope to a total breakdown of our constitutional order. That is why McClain's persistence was so critical. She wasn't just looking for a gotcha moment for a campaign ad. She was holding the line for the separation of powers. She was saying, "No, you do not get to do this. You answer to us." And by us, she means you and me. She means the people who wake up at 5 a.m., pack a lunch, and go to work to keep this country running. The sheer disrespect shown to Representative McClain was palpable. You see it all the time with this administration. When a conservative, especially a conservative woman, challenges their narrative, they get dismissive. They get condescending. They act as if asking for fiscal responsibility is some kind of hate speech. But McClain didn't back down. She didn't let him filibuster. She kept bringing him back to the point. When will we get the data? It's a simple question. It requires a date. Not a paragraph, not a philosophy, a date. And the fact that he couldn't, or wouldn't, give one is an admission of guilt. It is an admission that they are either incompetent and don't have the data, or they are malicious and are hiding it. There is no third option. We need to talk about the why behind the delay. Why drag this out? It's politics, pure and simple. They want to keep the promise of forgiveness dangling like a carrot in front of young voters for as long as possible. If they release the data and it shows that the program is a fiscal train wreck, or that it's illegal, or that it's not actually helping the people they claim it helps, the illusion shatters. They need the illusion to survive until the next election cycle. They are buying time with your money. They are mortgaging our children's future to secure their own political power. And Representative McClain is one of the few people in that town brave enough to call it out for what it is. The contrast between McClain's directness and the Secretary's evasiveness couldn't be starker. It represents the two Americas we are living in right now. One America is based on reality, on math, on accountability, on the idea that you pay your debts and keep your word. The other America is based on feelings, on narratives, on the idea that reality is whatever the government says it is. McClain speaks for the America of reality. She speaks for the people who know that there is no such thing as a free lunch. When the government forgives a loan, that debt doesn't vanish into thin air. It gets transferred to the national debt, which means it gets transferred to you. You become the co-signer for someone else's degree in gender studies. And McClain is standing there saying, "Not on my watch." It brings to mind the old Reagan quote about the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. In this case, they are here to help by burying us in debt and hiding the receipt. McClain is the firewall. She is the one saying that if you want to help, you start by being honest. You start by showing us the books. You start by treating the taxpayer with respect instead of contempt. The Department of Education has become a bloated monster that consumes resources and produces mediocrity, and its leadership is so insulated from the real world that they can't even comprehend why someone would be angry about a lack of transparency. This confrontation is a microcosm of the war for the soul of America. On one side, you have the forces of central planning, the elites who think they know better, the bureaucrats who hide behind red tape. On the other side, you have the forces of liberty, of fiscal sanity, of the people who just want to be left alone and told the truth. Lisa McClain is a warrior for our side. She is fighting a battle that is often thankless, often frustrating, but absolutely necessary. She is demanding that the government return to its proper place, as a servant of the people, not their master. As we continue to dissect this, remember that this isn't an isolated incident. This pattern of stonewalling is systemic. It is the default setting of the Biden-Harris administration. Whether it's the border crisis, the Afghanistan withdrawal, or the economy, the strategy is always the same: deny, deflect, delay. They hope that you will get tired. They hope that you will stop paying attention. They hope that the news cycle will move on to the next distraction. But McClain didn't let them move on. She pinned him down. She made it clear that this issue isn't going away. And that is the kind of leadership we are desperate for in Washington. We don't need more show ponies. We need workhorses. We need people who are willing to get in the mud and wrestle with the pigs, even if it means getting dirty, because that is the only way to clean up the sty. In the next part of this breakdown, we are going to go even deeper into the specific numbers, or lack thereof, that McClain was chasing. We are going to look at the potential fallout of this stonewalling and what it means for the future of the student loan debate. But make no mistake, what we saw in that hearing room was a skirmish in a much larger war, a war between the swamp and the people, and for once, thanks to Lisa McClain, the people got a few solid punches in. We left off watching Representative Lisa McClain absolutely hammering the Department of Education on their lack of transparency. But to truly understand the gravity of this situation, we have to peel back another layer of the onion. We have to look at the strategy behind the stonewalling. This isn't just incompetence, folks. Incompetence is when you lose your keys. This is calculated. This is deliberate. When a government agency refuses to give you a date for something as critical as financial data, it's because the date they have in mind is politically inconvenient. They are playing a game of three-card monte with the American economy, and Lisa McClain is the only one grabbing their wrist and demanding to see the card. Think about the sheer scale of the student loan portfolio. We are talking about nearly $1.7 trillion. That is trillion with a T. It is larger than the GDP of most nations on Earth. And the Department of Education is treating it like it's petty cash in a teenager's wallet. McClain's insistence on a specific timeline for the return to repayment data is crucial because that data is the smoking gun. It will show exactly how much revenue the government has lost, how much the deficit has ballooned, and how unsustainable this entire pause has been. By hiding it, the administration is effectively cooking the books. They are keeping the bad news off the ledger until it's too late to do anything about it. And let's address the elephant in the room, the concept of forgiveness itself. The very word is a lie. You cannot forgive a debt that is owed to the taxpayer. You can only transfer it. When the Secretary talks about helping borrowers, what he really means is forcing you to pay for them. Representative McClain understands this redistribution of wealth for what it is: socialism wrapped in a graduation gown. Her frustration in that hearing room stems from the fact that she represents the people who are footing the bill. The farmers in her district, the small business owners, the mechanics, they didn't sign up to underwrite the tuition of a lawyer in Manhattan. And yet, the Department of Education acts as if these people don't exist, or worse, that their concerns are irrelevant. The bureaucratic weave we saw the Secretary perform is a tactic taught in the finest swamps of DC. It goes like this: when asked a direct question, answer a question that wasn't asked. McClain asks, "When will we see the data?" The Secretary answers, "We are working hard to ensure a smooth transition." See the difference? One demands accountability, the other offers platitudes. It is designed to exhaust the questioner. It is designed to make the audience tune out. But McClain didn't tune out. She sharpened her tone. She leaned in. She exposed the hollowness of his answers. It was a masterclass in how to handle a hostile witness who thinks they are untouchable. Let's speculate for a moment on what they are hiding. Why the secrecy? Because the numbers are likely catastrophic. The default rates are probably projected to skyrocket. The administrative costs of processing these waivers are likely through the roof. And the inflationary impact? Massive. If they release this data now, it hands the Republicans a sledgehammer to use in the budget negotiations. It vindicates every warning McClain and her colleagues have issued for the past 3 years. So, the department's strategy is simple: delay, deny, and hope the media covers for them. And let's be honest, usually, the media does cover for them. But they can't cover up a live hearing where a representative refuses to back down. This brings us to the issue of emergency powers. The entire justification for this student loan pause and forgiveness was the COVID-19 emergency. But folks, look around you. The emergency is over. The president himself said it was over. Yet, the Department of Education is still operating as if we are in the middle of a crisis, using emergency powers to bypass congressional oversight. McClain's questioning pierces right through this facade. If the emergency is over, why are we still hiding data? If we are back to normal, why can't we have normal reporting standards? They want to keep the emergency alive on paper because it gives them power they wouldn't otherwise have. It is a power grab, plain and simple. McClain's defense of the taxpayer is also a defense of the integrity of the education system itself. Think about the moral hazard here. If students know that the government will just wipe away their debt, what incentive do they have to choose affordable colleges? What incentive do colleges have to keep tuition down? None. Prices will soar. And who pays? You do. Again, it is a vicious cycle that destroys the value of the dollar and the value of a degree. McClain sees this future clearly. She is trying to stop the bleeding before the patient. Our economy bleeds out. Her demand for transparency is the first step in restoring some semblance of sanity to a system that has gone completely off the rails. Furthermore, look at the body language in that room. The secretary, shifting in his seat, looking at his notes, avoiding eye contact. McClain, laser-focused, direct, unyielding. It's the difference between someone who is playing a role and someone who is on a mission. McClain isn't just a politician in that moment. She is a prosecutor. She is prosecuting the case against government waste and abuse. And the verdict, in the eyes of any rational observer, is guilty. Guilty of hiding the truth. Guilty of disrespecting the oversight process. Guilty of treating the American people like an ATM with no PIN code. The Department of Education has become a fiefdom, a rogue agency that operates outside the checks and balances envisioned by the Founding Fathers. They issue guidance that acts like law. They waive billions in payments with the stroke of a pen. And when Congress, the body that actually holds the purse strings, asks how much, they get silence. It is un-American. It is anti-democratic. And it is exactly why people are losing faith in their institutions. Lisa McClain is trying to restore that faith by forcing the system to work the way it's supposed to. She is reminding them that they are public servants, not public masters. We also have to consider the precedent of executive overreach. If the executive branch can simply ignore the legislative branch's request for information, then we no longer have co-equal branches of government. We have an imperial presidency. McClain is fighting for the institution of Congress as much as she is fighting for the issue at hand. She knows that if she lets this slide, if she accepts the non-answer, she weakens the power of every future representative to hold the executive accountable. It is a battle for the structural integrity of our government. And frankly, not enough Republicans are fighting it with her intensity. She is leading the charge, and others need to follow. Let's talk about the timeline again. Why can't they give a date? Is it because their systems are so archaic they literally can't track the money? That's a terrifying thought, but entirely possible with government IT. Or is it, as we suspect, that they are timing the release for a Friday afternoon news dump before a holiday weekend? The cynic in me, and let's face it, if you watch Washington long enough, you become a cynic, says it's the latter. They want the story to die. McClain wants the story to live. She wants the spotlight on it. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and she is trying to pry the roof off the Department of Education to let the sun shine in. The rhetoric used by the left to defend this secrecy is always about protecting the vulnerable. They say, we can't rush this, or vulnerable borrowers will suffer. It is emotional blackmail. They use the plight of struggling students as a shield to deflect from their own administrative failures. McClain doesn't buy it. She knows that the truly vulnerable people are the ones suffering from the inflation caused by this reckless spending. The single mom trying to buy groceries, the retiree on a fixed income watching their savings evaporate, those are the victims of this policy. McClain champions them. She refuses to let the narrative be hijacked by sob-stories designed to cover up fiscal irresponsibility. And what about the sheer arrogance of the "we'll get back to you"? In the corporate world, if you told your board of directors, "I'll get back to you regarding a $1 billion loss," you'd be fired on the spot. But in Washington, you get promoted. You get invited to cocktail parties. McClain is trying to bring real-world standards to a fantasyland government. She is demanding professionalism. She is demanding competence. It seems like a low bar, doesn't it? Just do your job and tell us the truth. But in the swamp, clearing that low bar is apparently an impossible feat. This showdown also highlights the importance of who we send to Washington. We don't need wallflowers. We don't need people who just want the title. We need fighters. We need pit bulls. Lisa McClain proved she has the grit to stand in the arena. She took the slings and arrows, she faced the stonewalling, and she didn't blink. It is inspiring to see. It gives you a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, there are still some people in DC who give a damn about the oath they took. So, as we wrap up this analysis of the confrontation itself, keep this image in your mind. The lone representative, armed with nothing but the truth and a microphone, staring down the massive, well-funded, well-protected machine of the federal bureaucracy. It is David versus Goliath. And while Goliath might have the size and the money, David has the moral high ground. And in this case, David has the receipts, or at least, she's demanding them. But the story doesn't end here. Oh no. The implications of this hearing ripple out far beyond that room. We need to talk about what happens next. What happens if they never release the data? What happens if they just keep stalling until the next election? And what can we, the people, do to back up representatives like McClain? Because this isn't a spectator sport. It's our money. It's our country. In the next segment, we are going to explore the dark alleyways of the administrative state and how they use complexity to hide corruption. We are going to look at the history of the Department of Education and ask the question, is it time to abolish it entirely? Because if they can't answer a simple question from Lisa McClain, maybe they don't deserve to exist. Stay tuned, because the rabbit hole goes deeper, and we are bringing a flashlight. Welcome back, patriots. We are deep in the trenches now, dissecting the showdown between Representative Lisa McClain and the Department of Education. But as we promised, we need to go deeper. We need to ask the question that is whispered in coffee shops and shouted at town halls across this country. Why does the Department of Education even exist? And why is it so terrified of the sunlight that Lisa McClain is trying to shine on it? To understand the stonewalling McClain faced, you have to understand the beast she is poking. The Department of Education wasn't handed down by Moses on Mount Sinai. It wasn't written into the Constitution by the Founding Fathers. In fact, if you scour the Constitution, you won't find the word education anywhere. The 10th Amendment makes it clear. Powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or to the people. For nearly 2 centuries, we educated our children just fine, better, actually, without a federal overlord in Washington telling local school boards what to do. So, where did this monstrosity come from? It was a political payoff. It was created in 1979 by Jimmy Carter as a thank you gift to the teachers' unions for getting him elected. From day one, its mission wasn't to educate children. Its mission was to feed the bureaucracy. And what has been the result? Has test scores gone up? No. Has literacy improved? No. Are our kids better prepared for the workforce? Absolutely not. The only thing that has gone up is the cost. We are spending more money per student than almost any other nation, and we are getting mediocrity in return. And now, under this administration, we are getting secrecy to boot. This is the context in which Lisa McClain is operating. She is fighting a leviathan that has had 40 years to entrench itself, 40 years to build walls of red tape to protect itself from scrutiny. When she asks for the cost of the student loan forgiveness waivers, she is threatening the lifeblood of this system. You see, the student loan program is the engine that drives the higher education cartel. It works like a money laundering operation, folks. The government guarantees the loans, which allows universities to hike tuition to astronomical levels because they know the government will back it. The universities then take that money, hire bloated armies of administrators, build lazy rivers and luxury dorms, and then funnel millions in donations back to the very politicians who keep the loan spigot open. It is a perfect circle of corruption. And the victim is the student who graduates with a worthless degree and a mountain of debt, and the taxpayer who is now being asked to bail them out. Lisa McClain knows this. She knows that if she can get the true numbers on record, if she can show the American people exactly how many billions are being siphoned off to prop up this failed system, the whole house of cards could collapse. That is why the secretary wouldn't give her a date. That is why he danced around the question. He is protecting the cartel. The phrase administrative state gets thrown around a lot, but let's look at what it really looks like in practice. It looks like an unelected official looking a brave, elected woman in the eye and effectively saying, "It's none of your business." It is the arrogance of the permanent ruling class. They believe that they own the government. They believe that elections are just a nuisance they have to manage every few years, but the real power lies with them, in their cubicles, drafting regulations that have the force of law without ever being voted on by Congress. McClain's interrogation was a direct challenge to this illegitimate authority. She was asserting the supremacy of the voter over the bureaucrat. And let's talk about what they are doing with that money while they hide the receipts. They aren't just teaching math and reading anymore. The Department of Education has become the central command for pushing woke ideology into every classroom in America. They're using federal funding as a weapon to force schools to adopt radical gender theories, critical race theory, and anti-American history. When they hide the budget data, they are hiding the fact that they are using your tax dollars to indoctrinate your children to hate their own country. McClain understands that the fiscal issue is tied to the cultural issue. You cannot separate them. A government that is fiscally irresponsible is almost always morally bankrupt as well. The complexity excuse the secretary used is the oldest trick in the book. They make the systems complex on purpose. If it's complex, they can say, "You wouldn't understand," or "We need more experts," or "We need more time." It's a barrier to entry for the common man. But Lisa McClain isn't asking for the algorithm. She's asking for the output. She's asking for the bottom line. It's like a contractor telling you he can't tell you how much the house will cost because the physics of carpentry are too complex. You would fire him. We should fire them. This hearing should be a wake-up call for every Republican in Congress. Lisa McClain showed the blueprint for how to deal with these people. You don't play nice. You don't accept non-answers. You interrupt them when they start spinning. You hold their feet to the fire. For too long, the GOP has been too polite, too worried about being called mean by the New York Times. McClain doesn't care about the New York Times. She cares about the balance sheet. She cares about the Constitution. And that is exactly the kind of energy we need if we are ever going to reclaim this government from the swamp creatures. Let's imagine the worst-case scenario, which is usually the most likely scenario with this crowd. Suppose they delay the data release until after the program is fully implemented. Suppose they present the forgiveness as a fait accompli. Oops, we spent the money. Sorry, too late to fix it now. That is their goal. It is called creating facts on the ground. Once the money is out the door, it's gone. You can't UN ring that bell. McClain is trying to stop the bell from ringing. She is trying to freeze the frame before the robbery is complete. Her urgency is justified because she knows that in Washington, delay is just another word for defeat. The media, of course, ignored this exchange. They focused on whatever shiny object the administration dangled in front of them that day. They don't want to talk about the boring details of budget oversight. But these boring details are where our freedom goes to die. Liberty isn't lost in one big explosion. It's lost in 1,000 small evasions, in 1,000 redacted documents, in 1,000 unanswered questions. McClain is fighting in the weeds because that is where the snakes are hiding. We also have to consider the signal this sends to the rest of the government. If the Department of Education can stiff-arm Congress, then the FBI can do it, the CIA can do it, the DHS can do it. It creates a culture of impunity. It tells every federal employee that they are accountable to no one. It turns the hierarchy of our republic upside down. The founders designed a system where the government fears the people. We now live in a system where the government ignores the people. McClain is trying to flip the script back to the original design. And don't forget the hypocrisy. This is the administration that campaigned on transparency and norms. They lectured us for 4 years about the importance of democratic institutions. Yet here they are, treating a congressional oversight hearing like a nuisance. They don't respect the institution of Congress. They only respect it when they control it. When a Republican like McClain asks the questions, suddenly the norms go out the window. It proves that their talk of democracy is just camouflage for their power grab. Lisa McClain represents the district, but in that hearing, she represented every single American who plays by the rules. She represented the guy who worked 2 jobs to pay off his student loans. She represented the parents saving for their kids' college. She represented the silent majority who are sick and tired of being treated like second-class citizens by their own government. When she frowned, we frowned. When she raised her voice, we raised ours. She was the avatar of American frustration. The battle over these student loan documents is a proxy war for the larger battle over the size and scope of government. Do we want a government that is limited, transparent, and accountable? Or do we want a government that is boundless, secretive, and arbitrary. The Department of Education has clearly chosen the latter. They want to operate as a shadow government, redistributing wealth based on political favoritism rather than the rule of law. McClain is standing in the breach, shouting, "Stop!" As we move forward, we have to ask ourselves, what is the solution? Is it just more hearings? Is it more angry letters? No. The solution, as uncomfortable as it might be for the establishment to hear, is to dismantle the machinery that makes this corruption possible. Why should the federal government be in the student loan business at all? Before the government got involved, college was affordable. You could work a summer job and pay your tuition. The government broke the market. And now they want to break the bank to fix it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. McClain's questioning hints at this deeper truth. By exposing the incompetence and the secrecy, she is building the case for a complete overhaul. She is showing that this agency is beyond repair. You can't reform a system that refuses to even tell you what it's doing. You have to tear it down and start over. Or better yet, return the money and the power to the states and the parents, where it belongs. This isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about power. Who has it, and who doesn't? Right now, the Department of Education has the power, and they are hoarding it. McClain is trying to claw it back. It is a struggle for sovereignty. Are we a sovereign people, or are we subjects of the administrative state? That is the question on the table. And the answer depends on whether we support fighters like Lisa McClain or whether we let the swamp swallow us whole. So, when you see a clip of a hearing like this, don't just scroll past. Watch it. Analyze it. See the contempt in the bureaucrat's eyes. Feel the righteous anger in the representative's voice. It is the sound of democracy gasping for air. And it is up to us to breathe life back into it by demanding answers, by demanding deadlines, and by demanding that the people we elect actually run the show. In the final segment of our hour-long deep dive, we are going to look at the end game. Where does this student loan saga end? Does the bubble burst? Does the Supreme Court step in again? And most importantly, how do we equip more representatives to act like Lisa McClain? We need an army of McClains. We need to clone her tenacity and inject it into the spine of the entire Republican caucus. Stick with me, because we are bringing this home with a plan of action that every patriot needs to hear. Welcome back for the final stretch of our journey into the heart of the deep state darkness. We've watched Representative Lisa McClain strip away the veneer of public service from the Department of Education, revealing the rot underneath. We've dissected the strategy of delay and obfuscation. Now, we need to talk about the endgame. Where does this road lead? And more importantly, what can we, the people who actually pay the bills, do about it? Because getting angry is good, but getting active is better. First, let's forecast the trajectory of this student loan disaster. If the Department of Education gets its way, if they successfully hide the data until the checks are cashed and the debt is forgiven, we are looking at an economic time bomb. We are talking about pouring hundreds of billions of dollars of phantom money into an economy that is already teetering on the edge of hyperinflation. When you print money to pay off debts that don't produce goods or services, you debase the currency. The dollar in your pocket becomes worth less. That gallon of milk, that tank of gas, that rent payment, it all goes up. This isn't just a policy dispute. It is a direct attack on your purchasing power. McClain is trying to defuse this bomb, or at least warn us before it goes off. But there is a darker political endgame here too. The left is trying to buy a permanent voting bloc. They are training a generation of Americans to believe that the government is their daddy, their savior, their piggy bank. They want young people to look to Washington for salvation, not to their own hard work or their families. It is a dependency trap. Once you get people hooked on free money, they will never vote for the party that says we need to cut spending. They will vote for the party that promises more, more, more. This is how you fundamentally alter the electorate. This is how you turn a republic of self-reliant citizens into a nation of serfs begging for scraps. Lisa McClain is fighting for the soul of the next generation. She is saying, Don't take the bait. The bait is poison. So, what is the solution? It's radical, but necessary. We need to talk about abolishing the Department of Education. It sounds extreme to the Beltway elites, but to regular Americans, it sounds like common sense. What value do they add? Do they teach? No. Do they build schools? No. They push paper. They push ideology. They push debt. If we shut down that building tomorrow, the sun would still rise, teachers would still teach, and students would still learn, probably better, because they wouldn't have federal bureaucrats breathing down their necks. The money we save could be returned to the states, or better yet, returned to you in tax cuts. Representative McClain's hearing is the perfect Exhibit A for the abolitionist case. An agency that cannot tell you how it spends your money is an agency that should not have your money. But until we can get the political will to shut it down, we need to use the tools we have. We need weaponized oversight. What Lisa McClain did needs to be the standard, not the exception. Every Republican committee chair needs to issue subpoenas. Not polite requests, subpoenas. If the secretary refuses to answer, hold him in contempt. If he still refuses, defund his office. Use the power of the purse. Congress controls the money. If the Department of Education won't show the data, cut their administrative budget to zero. Turn off the lights in their DC headquarters. See how fast they find those spreadsheets then. We need a GOP that is willing to play hardball. The time for strongly worded letters is over. And this is where you come in. The establishment relies on your apathy. They think you're too busy, too distracted, or too dumb to understand what's going on. Prove them wrong. Share the clips of Lisa McClain. Post them on Facebook, on X, on Truth Social. Make them go viral. Force the media to pay attention. Call your own representatives and ask them, why aren't you fighting like Lisa McClain? Tell them you are watching. Primary the ones who are weak. Support the ones who are strong. The only thing a politician fears more than the media is an angry, informed constituent. Be that nightmare for them. We also need to wage a cultural battle against the idea of debt forgiveness. We need to reclaim the moral high ground. Paying your debts is honorable. Mooching off your neighbor is not. We need to celebrate the plumber who didn't go to college, the veteran who used the GI Bill, the student who worked night shifts to graduate debt-free. They are the heroes, not the activists demanding a bailout. We need to shift the narrative. McClain is doing her part in Congress, but we have to do our part at the dinner table, at the school board meeting, and in the voting booth. Furthermore, we need to look at the legal avenues. Conservative legal groups need to be suing the Department of Education for this data. Use the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, as a battering ram. If the administration ignores Congress, maybe they will listen to a federal judge. We need a multi-front war, legislative, legal, and cultural. We are up against a massive machine, and we need to throw sand in the gears from every direction. Let's reflect on the character of Lisa McClain one last time. In a city of fake smiles and empty suits, she is the real deal. She reminds me of the great conservative women who have come before, tough, principled, fearless. She isn't there to make friends with the Georgetown cocktail circuit. She is there to do a job. And watching her work is a reminder that one person can make a difference. She exposed the secretary. She embarrassed the administration. She put the truth on the record. That matters. History will look back at that transcript and see that while the executive branch was lying, a representative from Michigan was telling the truth. The Department of Education thinks they can weigh us out. They think we have short attention spans. But they underestimate the anger that is brewing in this country. People are tired of being lied to. They are tired of the double standards. They are tired of the elites failing upward while the working class gets crushed. The student loan debacle is the perfect symbol of everything that is wrong with Washington. Elitism, secrecy, irresponsibility, and contempt for the taxpayer. McClain struck a nerve because she spoke for the forgotten man and woman. As we wrap up this hour, I want you to take this energy with you. Don't let it dissipate. Use it. The next time you see a headline about student loan relief, read it as taxpayer robbery. The next time you hear a bureaucrat say it's complex, translate it to I'm lying. Stay skeptical. Stay vigilant. And most of all, stay loud. The silence of the good people is what allows the swamp to thrive. We need to make some noise. We are living in dangerous times, but also clarifying times. The lines are drawn. You are either with the bureaucratic state, or you are with the American people. You are either with the secrets, or you are with the truth. You are either with the education department, or you are with Lisa McClain. I know which side I'm on. I'm on the side of common sense. I'm on the side of fiscal sanity. I'm on the side of the Constitution. And I suspect, if you're still listening, you are too. So, thank you, Representative McClain, for showing us that the spirit of resistance is still alive in the halls of Congress. And thank you, the viewer, for caring enough about your country to seek out the truth. The fight is just beginning. The Department of Education has thrown down the gauntlet, but they are about to find out that the American taxpayer is not a pushover. We are watching. We are remembering. And come Election Day, we will be voting. Until next time, keep your powder dry, keep your head on a swivel, and never stop demanding the truth. This is the end of the broadcast, but the beginning of the mission. Let's get to work.